Swim Things in Blue Springs, your one-stop shop for all things swim. Pools, spas, patio furniture, swimwear, and accessories. Visit them in Blue Springs or at www.swimthings.com.
Something. So my legacy, I hope, is that I was able to improve that problem, and so make it maybe not as severe. I think the problem's always going to exist. People are always going to try and find ways to get better and have access to more things. But if I could be the person who was able to leverage technology or any other like media platform to democratize the sport of swimming so that more people in more places have access to the information.
Hi, everybody. So, our guest today started his own company when he was in his mid 20s. And now, at age 29, he is one of the most successful tech CEOs in the world with a swimming app that is being used by millions of people. Faris Ksebati gathered a team that created MySwimPro to help athletes track their swim workouts and keep them more accountable. And it's made him one of the most celebrated entrepreneurs of the 21st century. And we're so happy to have Faris with us today. Faris, it is so good to see you. How are you doing, sir?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing well. Hope you guys are doing well. Same.
So, full disclosure to our audience, I was interviewed by Faris back in 2018 when his company was really just taking off. And one of the branches of his company was doing a series of interviews with people that were in the swimming community. And I had a blast talking with Faris, and it's just so fun to kind of turn the tables and talk to him now. So, Faris, of all the things that have happened in your life in the past couple of years, besides the COVID pandemic, what has been the most unexpected?
Whoo! We've had a lot of ups and downs in the road, and thank you for the very strong intro. I I really appreciate all those kind words. I think entrepreneurship is just filled with challenges. So I think what happens is you build tolerance to them actually over time. Things that maybe seem catastrophic in the moment, when you look back at them, they don't seem quite as big, but they are pretty big. So like on the positive and negative side. So we were named App of the Year by Apple. So that was like insane, and definitely to your question of unexpected. Yeah, that's really unexpected to be named by Apple as App of the Year. So that was at the end of 2016, and so beginning of 2017 is kind of when you start to see that impact. And a month later, we shipped an update that completely broke the app. So on the flip side, we were named App of the Year by Apple, and we're getting all the, we're on like the homepage of the App Store, and then we kind of broke it. And so that was unexpected. Obviously, you don't mean to do that. And so now you have like a complete 360, 180. And now we have all these emails and people are like, this doesn't work. And we're trying to fix things as quickly as possible. And, in retrospect, at the time, it's like, what have we done? This is terrible. And yeah, I mean, we make missteps, but we learn from them and we try not to repeat the same mistakes that we make. So, we're not going to be App of the Year again, for example, but we've had other, great things happen. Similarly, we've had other not so great things happen, and you just have to learn to adapt and be flexible.
Well, I don't think the recognition stopped in 2016. I think you just continue to grow this. And we already talked about some of these highlights, but just this year, you and your co-founder, Adam Oxner, were on the list of 30 under 30 in Forbes magazine. I mean, come on. Ferris, I don't know. That's probably just as big as being named App of the Year by Apple.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll take it. It's very humbling to be on that list, only because there's so many other superstars that have been on it or in our class and other years, but also because I know so many entrepreneurs who are like really they're doing awesome stuff and they're not on that list. And whether or not because they're in their 20s, 30s, whatever. But it's really cool to have that kind of an honor. And the only reason why I and Adam were able to be on that list is because we have a great team. We're not doing this alone. So, I just happen to be in the position of like founder CEO. So, I get the good and the bad of that position. And Forbes 30 under 30 is one of the good on that scenario.
How do you take these accolades to help you make those next big leaps with your company?
Yeah. So you can't, it's like a roller coaster. So like I mentioned, you'll have these incredible highs and lows, and you have to put everything in perspective. So it's great that, we were app of the year. Now, how can we leverage that to continue pushing the business forward? How can we make sure that people know this was app of the year? How can we highlight different things and partner with different people that maybe we couldn't before? Similarly, because I was named Forbes 30 under 30, whether or not it should be, I have access to more people more easily just because of that. And so, if we're trying to make a relationship happen or a business partnership, I can send the cold message, and maybe my response rate is going to be a little bit higher only because I have that headline. So trying to make sure that you keep things in perspective, but also use the opportunities that are presented to you to the best of your ability while continuously making progress and just keep moving.
Explain to us what MySwimPro app does, and what made you interested in creating this?
Yeah, totally. That's a great question. So I think to start, I'm a swimmer and born and raised, not in the water, but I guess we're actually, we're all in the womb at some point. We're all swimming. And then, 5 years later, when I learned how to swim outside the womb, when I was about 4 or 5 years old, something I just fell in love with. I actually wasn't very good at swimming. So like when I started, and it's just something that I really enjoyed, and I stuck with it, and I did it every summer. Eventually I swam in high school and college, but the idea for MySwimPro was to deliver coaching for people who don't have access to a coach. Because, growing up, I had this great swimming framework. I was on a swim team, always had a coach, team environment, and the coach always tells you what to do. But when you leave that environment and you kind of enter the real world, as I like to say, you're kind of on your own. I mean, certainly there's master's programs and different things like that, but for most people, they're swimming on their own. So at the time, there wasn't a coaching platform to be that personal coach for people who are looking for workouts or training programs. And that's what MySwimPro is. So we deliver these personalized training programs for people who don't have a coach. And we sync with different smartwatches. So like if you have an Apple Watch or a Garmin, you can track your workouts. You can run structured workouts on the watch. And it's like having a personal coach in your pocket or on your wrist. In some ways, it's better because you have real-time analytics and you can see your heart rate right on your wrist. And, the coach can't really do that. In other ways, obviously a human is going to be better. But a lot of people can't afford a coach. They don't have access to a coach. They can't go to a master's program at 5 a.m. if they have different, work schedule and stuff like that. And so that's what MySwimPro is. We try and build that digital experience, that digital coach for people who don't have access to one.
And how does this app help someone trying to get back into the pool?
Yeah, this is a great question because we see this comment all the time. It's like, I took just today, actually, this morning, we got a message from someone. They took 35 years off of swimming. Like that's older than I am. So that, they were swimming for like 20 years, took 35 years off, and now they're making a comeback. And this is something that happens to a lot of people because a lot of people, they grew up swimming, like on a swim team in summer league, or they learned how to swim, or they went on the lake when they were a kid or something. And then they took a break for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And now people are trying to make a comeback because maybe they did running and now their joints hurt. And swimming is just, the doctor recommends it because it's low impact and it's a great overall form of fitness. So we have different like training programs for groups of people that are in that scenario. So if you're like, we have a getting started plan, we have a get fit plan, and they start out really, really low distance volume. So you're not really swimming a lot. It's, hey, this is, work on this part of freestyle technique. We're only going to swim, 200 or 400 meters in the first workout. And we're going to build you up to doing 1,500 meters over 6 weeks. That's our Get Fit plan. So after 6 weeks, and if you do it 2 or 3 times per week, you're going to build upon what you started with. And eventually you'll get to a point where, 1,500 meters sounds like a lot. It is a lot for a complete beginner, but for a more experienced swimmer, yeah, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, you can crank that out a few times per week, but you can't start there. So we do have a lot of programs and resources, not just in the app, but through our content online where we try and help people understand swimming terminology, because that's actually a huge challenge in itself. There's so many swimmers who want to get into swimming, but they are so intimidated for a number of reasons. It could be, body image issues. It could be just lack of knowledge of how to get started, how to read a workout. I say 5 100s freestyle on the 130, and that is like a completely foreign language to most people who want to get into swimming. So we have to educate people, and we have to let them know it's okay not to know what this means. It's fine. most of this is not even important to get started. Just get in the pool, get moving, and then we'll teach you how to read the pace clock, how to, read a structured workout, how to write a workout if you want.
So you grew up in Michigan. Were you technologically savvy when you were growing up?
Maybe it's a relative question. So I'm from Michigan, correct? Born and raised. I still am in Michigan. And I think from a technology perspective, I was always sort of nerdy, but not in the sense of like, I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to like build the thing myself. I was always really interested in technology. And, it's funny because, like 15 years ago, technology means something different than it does now. Back in the day, my first like paid gig was a videographer. So like an artist hired me to film this art gallery painting thing. And I remember I had like a tripod, I had like a big camera that was recording on these like mini cassettes. And then, and like DVDs was like a big deal. So, I would burn a DVD. It sounds funny even saying this now. And now the smartphone shoots in 4K and you can have some kind of an elaborate setup and you can go live. You can stream live in high definition to anywhere in the world. I mean, these are things that even like, I'm not that old, but even just as I was growing up, that didn't exist. But I would say I was doing whatever the newest thing was at the time when I was in my, like in my teens. And I think that just has continued to today.
And since swimming is the whole inspiration of this, how did swimming fit into your life growing up in Michigan?
Yeah, so Michigan, fun fact, has more freshwater coastline than any other state in the country, in the United States. So we're literally, Michigan, the Lower Peninsula, is surrounded by water. And not only are we surrounded by water, and I live by one of these lakes, but there's a lot of inland lakes. And so there's more like boater registrations in Michigan than any other state. So because you're around water, there's a culture of swimming. So like there's a higher percentage of people who learn how to swim, who know how to swim here in Michigan compared to some other areas. And also another double fun fact, my parents actually don't swim. So they're, I'm a first generation American. They came and from like a city. And so like a lot of people don't know how to swim where they came from. And so like the logical thing when they moved to where we live is we need to put our kid in swimming, all of my older brother and my younger sister as well, because that's what everyone does. Everyone learns how to swim where I live. So I learned how to swim and I kind of went through that system. And like I mentioned, every summer I was on the summer recreation swim team. And, I'm really fortunate. I grew up in we were by the water. So there's like a pool, a beach, and a lake all within 100 feet of each other. It's really amazing. So, it feels like paradise. It still is actually. And I think that definitely had a huge impact. I think if I didn't, obviously I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I didn't grow up in that environment because, very easily, maybe my parents moved to like a city or somewhere where swimming really wasn't a thing. And maybe I would have never have learned how to swim, or maybe I learned how to swim, but that was it. I didn't really take it any further. So definitely, I think location has a huge factor in what you end up doing.
And a little divine intervention, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. I try and get them into swimming, but still working on it.
Well, I'm give them the MySwimPro app and say, look, just try it out.
I know we got the app and then me in person, like the human element. I'll work on it. I'll keep you guys updated.
Yeah, they know the CEO. they can get in there.
We know it.
So, speaking of this, you're the embodiment of achieving the American dream. You're a first generation American. You're the son of immigrants, and you've done things that might have seemed impossible when you were younger. What ideals did your parents teach you when you were younger that helped you get to this point in your life?
That's a great question. I think the first one that comes to mind is probably a trait that anyone who's accomplished certain things in their field is just hard work. And you sort of like, because my parents came from pretty much nothing, right? They've built what they have. So I think seeing that hard work like in person and like knowing that, because I grew up in an actually relatively wealthy area. So you see other people who kind of grew up with everything already and didn't really build it, generational wealth. And so to see that and then to see what my family was doing and see the differences and similarities in certain areas. So I think the trait there was hard work, obviously. And it's just kind of like being really consistent and working hard for everything that you do. Another part of that sort of separate from hard work is just having really good like perspective on the world and having more of like a global mindset on a sense, because it's very easy to think like, we are here, we're American, we're going to do, that's what we do. And then to have this like diversity element, and like I am different in certain ways than like the people that I was going to school with. And so to embrace that difference, especially, and, what's ironic is, like 20 years later, if anything, not much has changed, which is not good, in the sense that like people still don't recognize the differences that people have. So I think luckily for me, I was able to have like maybe a head start in seeing some of those differences, because I had differences. And I think if you want to build anything, especially on a global sense, you have to have that diversity of perspective, because if you don't, then you're kind of limiting your potential of like what you can actually do, because you're not able to fully realize things to what they can become.
Well, speaking of that global mindset, you travel around the world a lot for work. I'm still jealous, and I wish I had been able to work for a company where the CEO rents out a castle in Spain for an annual retreat.
Oh man.
I mean, come on. If that doesn't get anybody who wants to work for your company to work for you, I don't know what would. I mean, to know that you get to go to Spain once a year. I mean, that's amazing.
I have to put some context to this. Yeah. So last year, so every year, because we have an international team, we're remote, we're distributed. At the end of the day, you want to know the people that you work with, right? So you can only do that if you come together in some capacity and you really focus on team building and doing things like that. So last year, part of this retreat, we rented a castle in Spain. So everyone flew out there, and it was on the island of Majorca, which was pretty sweet. And we spent a week, and we were doing team building. We worked on strategy. We created some great content. We were right by it was like a castle on the top of like this little mountain, walking distance to the beach. So it probably looks cooler than I'm actually describing too. I made a video about this on my YouTube channel, but basically the concept there is to bring everyone together. And, unfortunately this year we couldn't travel to any destination, exotic or not. So instead what we did was we did like a camping adventure. So everyone got a tent and a sleeping bag, and we had like different challenges every single day of the week, and we recorded like videos and did all these different experiences together. So even though we weren't physically together, we were able to share the same types of experiences and share what we were able to do in those challenges. So that's what we did this year. And, hopefully next year we'll be able to actually go somewhere and we'll have a little bit bigger team. But it might not be a castle in Spain. It might be somewhere else. But the idea is, team building, strategy, and creating content. So you can do that in a lot of different places. So we'll see what we can do logistically in 2021.
Oh, that sounds like a blast. How many countries have you set foot on?
So I actually had to think about this, because I created a video where I talked about how the journey of building MySwimPro and traveling at the same time, kind of connecting those two. So in the last 5 years, I've been to about 35 cities in 14 countries. And so a few of those cities are in the United States. So, I think there's a lot of people who do a lot of domestic travel, and I've been fortunate to, from New York to California, getting a good spectrum there. But I think international travel is a lot different, because even though the United States is massive by geography, it's not that much different when you go from like New York to like Pennsylvania. I mean, like those are close, but like from Michigan to Florida, yeah, I mean, there's palm trees in Florida, and in Michigan we have a lot of lakes. So, but the culture and the human element is really not that much different. It's still the United States of America. But when you go to like China or Japan, or I was in Istanbul last year, right? Each of these have a very different vibe, culture, language. People look different. People speak different. I mean, like everything is different. And so you get a lot more, I think, kind of going back to that diversity of perspective. You can see what, like, this is the world. When you're in the United States, you don't actually get an accurate representation of what the world looks like, functions, because the United States, as massive as it is only like 4 or 5% of the world's population. So when you think about that, like we're, even though we have a massive economy and we're very influential in a lot of stuff we do, we're not a good representation of a lot of elements of human life. And so I think when you travel to, and sometimes there's different kinds of travel. So to kind of go a little bit deeper onto this point, like when you go to another country, if it's a country where everyone still looks the way that you look, everyone still speaks English and or your native language. And on top of that, you go to a hotel that is filled with Americans or people of the same country as you, and you only go to these tourist destinations, you're not really getting a full sense of what that country is or what that region is. And so, when you travel somewhere where people don't look like you, they don't speak like you, you're eating different food, and you're actually more immersed in that culture, then you get a real sense of it. And I've experienced it both ways. I've gone to the nice hotel, I've stayed at the Airbnb, and there's definitely a difference in how that affects you and what you actually get out of it.
Oh, sure. I've experienced the same thing as you. But your app is in more than 14 countries. So I think you need to be visiting all the countries where your app is, just for customer service purposes. I mean, you can write it off as a business expense and say, I've been to all the countries where MySwimPro app is.
I think if I did that, I would not only bankrupt the company, I would also just bankrupt my sanity So I think that's one thing that's amazing with technology is, when you have an app or a website or anything like that, if it's serving a global audience, which people swim all over the world, it's going to get downloaded everywhere. So we have, in almost every single country in the world, like over 180 countries, MySwimPro has been downloaded and used. Workouts have been logged. So it's not practical for me to go to all those countries, but it is amazing to know that in all corners or parts of the world, someone's downloaded the app and someone's going swimming and they've seen the MySwimPro logo. They've seen me in a video or something like that. So that's a really cool experience. And I think tying back to the travel, like when I was in Turkey last year in Istanbul for the Bosphorus cross-continental swim from Asia to Europe, there's like 2,500 people that do it. And there were a few people who, like, I was wearing, this MySwimPro shirt, and there were a few people who like knew MySwimPro and who I was and stuff like that. And it was cool. And it was cool to hear their stories. And a lot of these stories are the same. Like, people all over the world, they swim for the same reason. They swim because they either want to compete, they want to lose weight, they want to be physically fit, mental health, any of those reasons. And whether you're in Istanbul or Beijing or Atlanta, you're still going to have very similar experiences, but the people are different. And that's really cool.
Well, let's talk about immersing yourself in all these countries you go in. You actually can speak several languages fluently. What are those languages?
I don't know about several fluently. I want to, so my first language is English, because I was born and raised here. My parents' first language is Arabic. So, I'm pretty fluent in understanding. I can sort of speak that depending on the context. And then I have learned a lot of expressions in a lot of different languages just because, if you travel somewhere, it's great to have that kind of courtesy and make an effort in the language. The MySwimPro app is available in 9 languages. I don't speak 9 languages, but on our team, now here's the thing, on our team, we do speak 9 or 10 different languages just on our team. Almost everyone can speak another language. A few people are trilingual, can speak multiple languages. And so, even though I'm the front person or the spokesperson for the company, I do pretty much everything in English, but having those different expressions and then being able to lean in on our team, if we do have someone message us in Russian or Spanish or, Turkish, any of those languages, like, we have someone on the team that can speak it fluently and make things go a little bit faster and not have to rely on Google Translate, which, as we've learned, is actually not that great. Unfortunately, right. It's not there yet, but it's great to have actual human beings who are fluent in all those languages.
Well, I think that was a good choice for you to be able to hire people who can help you with that language barrier that goes on with such an international app.
Totally.
So just to talk a little bit more about your swimming, you swam for Wayne State University, staying very close to home. And like me, you're both breaststrokers. Were you able to race other events in college besides breaststroke? Or like me, did you just you could only do the 100 and 200 breast and probably 200 IM?
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. And I think actually even now the college landscape is a little bit different than it was when I was swimming and even when you were swimming. So in Division II, like the university I went in, it was about 3 events. Like that's your thing. So for me, it was 100 breaststroke, 200 breaststroke. And then I didn't really have a third event. I wasn't actually good at anything besides breaststroke. And so I've actually done a number of different events. So I did the 400 IM, which sucks because it was with the 100 breaststroke. So I did that actually two seasons. And then I did the mile one season, which is with the 200 breaststroke, only because I guess I don't die. Like I can do it and not drown, basically. And then I did the 1,000 another time. But if anything, I actually prefer the shorter races. So like I like the 100 IM and Masters. That's my favorite event. So to your question about how I did other events, I know now in Division 2 at least you can do 4 events in a championship meet. So if anything, having more versatility is better. So a lot of people will do like the 200 IM, 400 IM, 100 breaststroke, 200 breaststroke. That might have been what I did if that was how the rules were when I was swimming in college. But you know, I don't think I really did anything besides breaststroke, and I don't think I wanted to because I wasn't that very good. And so like it's not fun to get destroyed in a race by like the studs. Like if I was swimming in like a dual meet, the 500 free or anything like a 200 backstroke, God forbid, like I would get lapped in the 200 backstroke. Like, you know, these guys are going like 150. I'm going like 230 or something. It's terrible. So I would rather not even want to swim. Now in Masters though, it's really fun because I get to pick my own events. There's the 50s of stroke. I can swim the 50 backstroke and no one's going to lap me. It's fine. Like I can get under 30. We're good. Like, so it's fun to be able to pick your events now in Masters, but great experience to have it's great to have the college experience as well.
Yeah, master swimming is the best. It's absolutely so much fun. And 100 IM was what got me into master, so I totally identify with you on that. So speaking of masters, you know, obviously you're a very good competitive master swimmer, but with this job that, you know, obviously as the CEO where you've got so much time that you have to devote to it, and with the travel and everything, I'm sure this is something a lot of master swimmers around the world deal with. How do you keep up your swim training when there's so much travel involved, and you know you might go to a place where there may not be a good pool available?
Yeah, this is a great question. I don't think you have to be in my like company position, just in general, like in life. How do you balance like working out and having other priorities besides working out? I found the most success when I'm just better planned in advance about my like training. So, for example, if I know I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to be gone for like 4 days or a week, let's say I'm going to be gone for 7 days, you know, I'm going to try and make sure I plan out my routine on a like seasonal planning basis well in advance of that. So that way that week is maybe a recovery week for me, where if I only swim once or twice or not at all, it's not a big deal because I plan that. And, you know, maybe if I do a few weight workouts, depending on the location, or I do a little bit of dry land, some push-ups, like leg lifts, but that's like a recovery week and I plan it out. So that way, when I'm not traveling, I'm doing like hard training. And I'm also even like, okay, well, how do you fit in the time to do hard training when you're, you know, trying to get stuff done? But I'm very intentional with the workouts that I do. So rather than, you know, I see it at the gym all the time. People just go there and hang out. They're at the gym for like 2 hours and they're on their cell phone, which is fine. Like I'm on my phone a lot too, but it's having a plan before you go to the pool, before you go to the gym, so that you know exactly what you're going to do. So when I'm lifting, I normally do like a 3-day split. So I know like exactly what types of movements I want to do, and it builds off whatever I did the week before. So there is some flexibility. I'm not one of those people that's like with a pen and paper, like writing down my maxes and like how when I failed and stuff like that. But I do have a pretty good idea in the gym what I'm going to do. And then the pool, it's the same thing. So I do have a pretty solid plan of what type of workouts I'm going to do. I put it on the MySwimPro app. I run the workout, I get in and out, and I typically don't even swim a lot. So if we're talking about swimming, you know, a normal week, a normal workout, you know, if I'm doing 2,000 yards, that's a solid workout. 2,500 is like, all right, we're doing something. 3,000 is we're really motivated and we're trying to put in base work. It's ironic that I say this right now because here in the month of November, it's you know, Men's Health Awareness November. So I actually did a challenge. I'm swimming 100,000 meters this month. So like just before this interview, I did 4,000 yards. So like every day I'm doing every day I'm doing 3,000 to 5,000 yards, which, you know, back in the day in college, like that was nothing. But now it feels like a lot because I'm used to only swimming 2,000 every other day. And now here I am, I just did 4,000. So, you know, it's tough, but you got to plan ahead. And that's my best advice.
And plan the naps that you'll need.
Yes, yes.
What would you want your legacy to be as a part of the swimming community?
Yeah, this is a great question. I've been thinking about this a lot recently for a number of reasons. But the primary legacy, I think, is that, like I was someone who was able to democratize swimming knowledge and things like, so for example, the whole reason I started the company MySwimPro is because people were asking me a lot of questions about swimming, about workouts, about training. And the reason they were asking those questions is because there weren't enough resources, enough accessible resources out there at the moment. And certainly there are blogs and videos and stuff like that, but they weren't really packaged together in a way that helps people improve, where you can start somewhere and then like follow a plan and then reach the destination and get better at something. So my legacy, I hope, is that I was able to improve that problem. And so make it maybe not as severe. I think the problem's always going to exist. People are always going to try and find ways to get better and have access to more things. But if I could be the person who was able to leverage technology or any other like media platform to democratize the sport of swimming so that more people in more places have access to the information that was traditionally only reserved for people, you know, a lot in the United States or in European countries who grew up in a structured training environment, who have the really fancy master swim programs available to them. The reality is most people don't have that. So I want to be in a position where I can say like, I was able to help democratize the sport of swimming. And that, and the reason why I've been thinking about this is because I'm actually writing a book right now about swimming and how people can basically packaging everything that I just described in just one spot. So that way, you know, because, you know, the app is great, having technology is great, but how can we package that information into something that is more digestible? And people like books, and a lot of people take information in through books. And so, you know, hopefully that is just one piece of that legacy of being able to democratize the sport of swimming.
Well, I think that's amazing. And, you know, some people may be watching is like, he's only 29. Why is he thinking about a legacy? I mean, it's never too early to start thinking about how you want to leave your mark on the world. And I think obviously you're doing that right now, and you have a lot more to do. And we're anxious to see how you do it and follow along and celebrate these accomplishments that are really groundbreaking in many ways. And you shared a lot of the reasons why that is. So thank you, Ferris, for not only all you've been doing for the swimming community, but being a part of our show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's always fun to talk swimming, talk entrepreneurship, and wish you guys the best.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone who watched our show today. And we want to remind you, be sure to visit MySwimPro.com to learn more about Ferris's award-winning app. And you can also catch all of his videos on YouTube. There's the MySwimPro channel. There's Ferris's personal channel. He's actually got a nice little 12-minute short that features some of his family and a nice little fun video. So check that out as well. And there's a lot more to come from Ferris, I'm sure, which only highlights that it's not just about the destination, it's about the journey. We'll see you next time.